I would like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Board for the Village of Pinehurst meeting, March 30th, 2023. My name is Jeremy Hooper. I'll serve as the chair for today's meeting. The time is now 2 o'clock. I'll point out that we do have 5 board members present, which does constitute a quorum. We're able to conduct business, which we do have a public hearing on the agenda today. So given that fact, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves, beginning on our right.
Paul Roberts.
Jack Farrell.
Matt Jones.
And we do have staff liaisons with us today, Kathy Lyles, Alex Cameron, Maria Carpenter, Allison Cassidy, and Shannon Constantine. We do have a sign-up sheet in the back of the room for anybody who does wish to speak to today's meeting. We do not have many in attendance, but if anybody does wish to speak, please do so. I'll also remind anyone who is speaking to please speak directly and clearly into your microphone, as we're being live streamed and recorded today. And we're going to follow the agenda. First item of business is a public hearing where we're going to address the Village Place and Pinehurst South small area plans and form-based codes. With that, take a motion to enter into a public hearing.
I move to recess a special meeting and enter into the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion by Matt, second by Jack. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we have now entered into a public hearing. Alex and Kathy, I'm guessing you two are up, or anybody else want to take the wheel?
I'll grab it. So thank you, everybody, and those watching and in attendance. So the purpose of this public hearing, just so I can officially get this stated on the record, is to consider a formal recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board of Village Council on the Village Place and Pinehurst South small area plans and form-based code. So what's on the agenda today is a culmination of months, years, hours of a lot of work by this board, input by our citizens, and a lot of staff time. And I hope Darren's watching, or he will at least see the video, and we can give him a thank you for a lot of the effort that he put in getting it to this point. And I'm just a guy that gets to help take it to the finish line here. So with that understanding, too, we're very appreciative of all the extra time that this board has put in, that staff has put in, and having to make revisions to try to get a better document from where we were probably about 9 or 10 months ago. So one item, just to a little background and explanation, you guys probably remember that you've kind of already give some sort of an affirmative nod on the small area plans. Well, this is a formality. And going back and further investigating the general statutes, we felt it's more prudent, and it's probably the correct avenue or approach is that we also have a public hearing on that as well. The form-based code for each of these are really just going to be a companion document, kind of not quite a formal appendix to the corresponding small area plan, but these are going to be, as defined by statute, plans and the guidance document, just like a comprehensive plan for guiding growth and development within these areas. So because this board and staff has been so familiar and intimately working through this document, especially for the past month and a half, I don't plan on doing any big presentations or going page by page. The small area plans, again, this board and village council for that matter have already given an approval or an okay. The form-based codes, we have gone through at exhaustion, page by page, section by section. The main revisions that were made live with this agenda yesterday evening, which I opened my mouth yesterday and promised before we left. So there was, staff does not have to nod in agreement, but there was a high-stress interaction with me yesterday evening before we left. There's still some items that we're going to go back and fact-check as we get this thing ready and buttoned up, going to Village Council, including making sure that any page references are correct, because we've had a really difficult time with doing minor edits, text, image, et cetera, formatting. Table of contents might need to be adjusted a little bit. So any recommendation or any motion that this board does, just know with the understanding that we're going to give that another look. The content of the actual requirements, the standards, anything that's outside of just a general narrative, those are the things that we need to make sure that we've incorporated. You know, we've had a lot of discussions, and we wanted to make the changes and the adjustments regarding flat roofs, some setbacks, removal of the live work to cut down on any type of confusion between that and mixed use, the regulating plan, lot standards, the one reference to material for stone material in the Village Place form-based code only. So those changes should all be reflected in the documents that were sent out yesterday evening, and that we're asking for a formal recommendation on you guys this evening.
Thank you. Do you mind just starting over at maybe base one, just as an overview, first from the need, where this came from, the two different small area plans, the need for them, as well as the relationship between those and the form-based codes and implementation?
Okay, I'll start real high up in the clouds, and I'll take us down just a little bit further. So 2018, the village was going through the process of updating the comprehensive plan. We went through that process, and it ended with adoption in fall of 2019, Jack?
Yep.
Yeah. So with the adoption of the 2019 comprehensive plan, there were 5 focus areas that were designated that the village should look into doing small area plans for. So focus areas 2 and 4 respectively are the Pioneer South area and the Village Place area. So 2020, we entered into a contract with a consultant to do small area plans with somewhat of a form-based code kicker for these 2 areas. And we went through that whole process, and we were doing it sort of, working through the beginnings toward the end of the COVID crisis, and it was difficult to get some engagement, to get, it had its own challenges, and so out of that, we've worked with and got feedback from this group, from members of the community, from Village Council. I would say basically 2 different groups of Village Council, honestly, and a different representation on the board. I think some of you guys came about halfway through that process. And so all that hard work and effort and input has basically given us what we have before you guys today. So you're going to take it all the way back to 2018 or 2019 till now. And the statutes do require that if you're going to have a zoning ordinance and zoning maps, you've got to have a comprehensive plan now. And that includes comprehensive plans, or guiding plans also include small area plans, and that's directly in Chapter 160D.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that, to ask you to start over at day one and give a kind of synopsis of the need of this, but it's in top here.
It's in there.
So
It's
that was a long time ago for us all.
real life experiences.
Yeah,
in
and
there.
so like you said, a lot of days, a lot of hours, a lot of time, certainly from this board, has been given into this document. We've combed it over, a lot of details. We've gone through many words. We have a lot of expertise on the board. Of course, I point over here to Matt, and he's been a star on it, as well as, everybody here today. So I'm going to assume that we do not have anybody signed up to speak. Does anybody like to speak that's here? There's only, all right, no one wants to speak. So with that, if there's any questions that anybody wants to ask staff inside of the public hearing, if not, if we're willing, we also could exit the public hearing and go ahead and discuss amongst ourselves.
Comfortable?
Comfortable? Anybody, any questions? All right. So unless staff has any more presentation on this topic, we can exit the public hearing.
The only thing I would add is that this doesn't put everything to rest. There is
Okay.
still some work to do, obviously, to implement this, but this is, I don't know which step in the process this is, but it's the next step.
The next step, yeah. Okay, all right. Okay. We have
Second.
motion by Bruce, second by Matt. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we have exited the public hearing, and we are now back into our special meeting where we can deliberate. Thoughts, feelings? Anybody want to make sure that any of the changes that we've requested have been made? Any other comments?
Very comfortable that our discussions and changes and/or concerns are reflected properly in the printed documents in the agenda. The only thing I would like to point out to the public, whomever is listening, is that there are two separate documents being reviewed and approved in this public hearing. Both the Village Place and the Pinehurst South small area plans have to be taken as a representation of a discussion of what there is now and what there could be in the future, and to a great extent, it's aspirational. And I think it's important that anyone who reviews that document, when they look at the photographs or drawings, not assume that that's exactly how something is going to be developed or should be developed or something like that. It's just sort of an aspirational view of how we could move in that direction, and I think that's the key to that document. Whereas the form-based code document is far more specific in providing a basis for how the actual development will occur in a more specific form. So it's important to recognize the difference between the two documents we're approving today.
It's worth saying, and we probably all feel this way, but I appreciate staff and your patience with us, and Darren for the most part, as we have made comments and asked questions to some depth, maybe greater depth than we needed to at times. But I mean, I feel like we have a better understanding of what these are and the role they're going to play. So appreciate everybody on staff, and you're working with us to help us do this together.
We do work together, and that's lost on some members, that we all work together. We're a part of that board. You guys are essentially a part of the staff.
Well, and I think it's fair to say that as many hours as we've put in this, you've put in 100 times more than that. So if that's fair to say.
At least 85 times.
Yeah, at least 85 times. So any more discussion? All right, if there's no more discussion, we can discuss approval or recommendation to council on the subject. Please take a look at your procedure and motion templates today. As we do so, as we want to make sure that we, give a recommendation on each one of the small area plans separately.
Well, relative to Village Place, I move that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend the Village Place Small Area Plan and Form-Based Code to the Pinehurst Village Council for adoption without revision.
We have a motion on the floor by Jack, a second by Bruce. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we have recommended approval of the small area place, a small area plan for the Village Place. Now let's go ahead and move on to Pinehurst South. Do we have a recommendation for that?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend the Pinehurst South Small Area Plan and Form-Based Code to the Pinehurst Village Council for adoption without revision.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Matt, a second by Jack. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we have recommended approval on the Pinehurst South Small Area Plan to council. Across the finish line there.
Rubicon.
X% done,
Well, and I'll go ahead and note, just not to
With
make
Y
light of the
left.
subject,
whatever that might be.
but it's interesting to say without revision, because we've actually had a million revisions to this document through along every line, all the way down to some words. Okay, so unless there's anything else that we need to accomplish on those subjects, let's go ahead and move on to the next new business item, which is to discuss proposed official zoning map and PDO text amendments for Village Place in Pinehurst South. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Alex.
So I don't know if I'm going to make everyone's afternoon or raise some eyebrows, but I would ask the board respectfully, if you would consider not taking that agenda item up and giving us the ability to get back into our offices and continue to work on that.
I don't think you're going to have any objections with that unless there's any topics or any,
I think that's fine, because we did do a first review, so to speak, yesterday. And I think that you've probably have recognized there's probably a bunch of stuff still left to do before we get to end the job on that phase.
My brain continues to think through that and think about how many maybe potential other ways there may be to tackle that. Understanding that time is very precious. And I hope to have an update for you guys early next week, if not tomorrow, by close of business, on what to expect Thursday on that topic. That is the last topic that we need to do to get this implemented, and I don't want to rush it.
yep, that makes,
Sounds
that's
good.
fair.
Was a text amendment in the map, the stuff that we were presented yesterday?
Correct.
Okay.
So with that, I'll just announce that the next meeting date is our regular meeting on April 6th, 2023, and that is it seems like with all the meetings in between, that's our next regular scheduled meeting.
It's hard to feel that way, isn't it?
Yeah. So unless there's any other topics or any other comments or statements from anybody on the board, we'll accept the motion to adjourn the meeting. We have a motion on the floor by Bruce. Do we have a second? Second by Jack. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 2:16.